My name is Elizabeth. I turned 65 on a quiet Thursday evening that was supposed to be anything but quiet. I had spent weeks preparing. Not casually preparing, not throwing something together at the last minute, but really preparing. The kind of preparation that fills your days with purpose. I chose every detail carefully. The menu, the flowers, even the music that would hum softly in the background while we laughed and shared stories. I ironed the tablecloth twice, just to make sure there wasn't a single crease. I even bought a new dress, deep emerald, simple but elegant. The kind that made me feel like myself again, like I still mattered. The table was set for 7. Each place had a handwritten card. My son Daniel, his wife Claire, my grandchildren, Noah and Lily, my younger sister Margaret and her husband Thomas, and me at the head of the table where I could see everyone at once. That was the idea anyway. By 6:30, no one had arrived. At first, I wasn't worried. People run late. Traffic happens. Life gets in the way. I checked my phone, convinced I had somehow made a mistake with the time. But there it was, clear as day. Dinner at 6 p.m. I had even reminded them. Twice. At 7, I started calling. Daniel didn't answer. Claire didn't answer either. Margaret, who always picked up, even if she was busy, sent me straight to voicemail. That was the moment something in my chest tightened. Not panic. Not yet. Something colder. I stood in the dining room, staring at the untouched plates. The candles I had lit so carefully were already melting into uneven pools of wax. The food was still warm, but not for long. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. By 8 o'clock, I knew. They weren't coming. I sat down slowly, as if my body had suddenly forgotten how chairs worked. The silence in the house felt wrong. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just empty. Like the walls themselves were aware something was missing. I tried to explain it away. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe something unexpected happened. Maybe. My phone buzzed. For a second, my heart lifted. Daniel. I opened the message. Hey Mom. Sorry, totally slipped my mind. We're out of town this week. Claire planned a surprise trip. Happy birthday. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time slower. Out of town. A surprise trip. Slipped his mind. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was in the kitchen, staring at the cake I had baked that morning. Chocolate, his favorite. I had made it from scratch, like I used to when he was a boy. Back then, he would stand on a chair beside me, stealing bits of batter and laughing when I pretended to scold him. I reached out and touched the edge of the cake. Still perfect. Untouched. Something told me not to look, but I did anyway. I opened my social media, and there it was. A photo at the very top. Claire, smiling brightly in a flowing summer dress. Daniel beside her, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. Behind them stretched a wide, endless ocean, blue and sparkling under the sun. The caption read, Family time. So grateful for moments like these. I scrolled. More photos. Noah building sandcastles. Lily laughing, her hair caught in the wind. Margaret and Thomas raising glasses in what looked like a luxury restaurant. All of them together. All of them happy. All of them there. Without me. I checked the timestamp. Posted less than an hour ago. While I had been sitting at my table, waiting, something inside me didn't break. It cracked. There's a difference. Breaking is loud, dramatic, final. Cracking is quieter, slower, more dangerous. Like ice-forming fractures you can't immediately see, but you know they're there, spreading. They had planned this. Not accidentally, not carelessly, deliberately. Claire had organized it. Of course she had. She was always the one behind the plans, the schedules, the family decisions. And somehow, she had managed to include everyone. Everyone except me. Even Margaret, my own sister, who had helped me choose the flowers just a week ago. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Claire's smile looked different now. Not warm, not kind, triumphant, like she had won something. My phone slipped from my hand onto the counter. I didn't pick it up. Instead, I turned off the oven. The roast had gone cold anyway. I wrapped the cake in plastic and placed it in the fridge. I blew out the candles one by one, watching the smoke curl into the air. Then I began clearing the table. Each plate made a small, sharp sound as I stacked it. Too loud in the silence. Too final. I caught my reflection in the dark window as I passed by. I looked smaller. Not physically. Just less. Like someone had taken a piece of me and erased it. For years, I had been the one holding everything together. Remembering birthdays. Organizing holidays. Calling just to check in. Smoothing over disagreements before they turned into something worse. I was the center. Or at least I thought I was. But standing there, in that quiet house, I realized something I had never allowed myself to consider before. Maybe I hadn't been the center for a long time. Maybe I had already been fading. I went upstairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. The house creaked in familiar ways, but even those sounds felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's life. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments I had ignored. Missed calls, last-minute cancellations, events I had somehow gotten wrong. Little things, too many little things. And for the first time, a thought formed, clear, sharp, impossible to ignore. This wasn't an accident. This was a pattern. And if it was a pattern, then someone had created it. And I already knew who. I closed my eyes, but sleep still didn't come. Because deep down, I understood something else too. That empty chair at my birthday table? It wasn't the beginning. It was the result. And whatever had been happening behind my back, it had been going on for much longer than I ever imagined. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I just lay there, staring into the darkness, while my mind slowly began to rearrange the past. At first, I tried to hold on to the version of reality I had always believed in, that everything had simple explanations. That people didn't hurt you on purpose. That family, no matter how messy, was still family. But the longer I lay there, the harder it became to lie to myself. Because once you notice one crack, you start seeing all of them. By morning, I wasn't tired anymore. I was something else entirely, alert in a way that felt almost unnatural, like my brain had decided it was done protecting me from the truth. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the quiet street outside, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to question everything. The first memory that came back was Noah's birthday last year. I had been so excited about that day. I'd bought him a gift weeks in advance, something he had mentioned offhand during one of our phone calls, a remote control car, bright red, the kind that could climb over rocks. I remember wrapping it carefully, imagining his face when he opened it. But when I arrived at the address Claire had given me, the place was empty.
No balloons. No decorations.
No children's laughter. Just silence. I stood there for several minutes, convinced I had made a mistake. Maybe I had the wrong time. Maybe I had misunderstood something. I called Daniel, and he sounded confused, genuinely confused. "Mom, the party is today," he said. "We've been here for hours." I remember feeling embarrassed, apologizing over and over, thinking I had somehow gotten it wrong. Later, Claire told me she must have mixed up the address when she texted me. She laughed it off so easily, so naturally, that I ended up comforting her instead. But now, standing in my kitchen, I realized something that made my stomach twist. That wasn't a mistake. That was the first time she erased me. Then came Lily's first day of school. I had asked Claire 3 separate times what time they would arrive, so I could be there. I even wrote it down to be sure. She told me they were going early, before the usual schedule, because Lily was nervous and they wanted to avoid the crowds. Probably too early for you, she had added gently.
But I went anyway.
And when I got there, the teacher looked at me with polite confusion and said, "Oh, Lily?" She came in at the regular time with her parents. I had missed it, missed her walking into that classroom, missed her little hand holding onto Daniel's, missed the moment she would remember for the rest of her life. And again, I blamed myself. I thought I was getting forgetful,
Slower.
less reliable. I thought maybe I was becoming a burden. The realization hit me so hard I had to sit down. It wasn't just 1 or 2 incidents. It was dozens. Holidays where I was told plans had changed at the last minute. Family dinners that were rescheduled without me. Events that I only found out about later through photos. Photos where everyone looked happy, complete, whole. Without me. I walked back to the kitchen table and picked up my phone again. This time, I wasn't scrolling mindlessly. I was looking for proof. And I found it. Picture after picture. Birthday parties. School events. Vacations. Ordinary afternoons that somehow became memories worth capturing. Daniel was there. The children were there. Claire was always there at the center, smiling, glowing like she belonged exactly where she stood. And me? Sometimes I appeared at the edge of a frame, barely noticeable. Other times, I wasn't there at all, not even mentioned. It was like watching my own life from the outside and realizing I had been written out of the script. I set the phone down slowly. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, too steady, because the truth was settling into place, piece by piece, forming something I could no longer ignore. Claire hadn't pushed me out all at once. She had done it gradually,
Carefully.
so slowly that I never noticed it happening. At first, it was small things, changing plans, slight miscommunications, little moments where I felt slightly out of sync but blamed myself for it. Then it grew. Fewer phone calls from Daniel, shorter conversations, less time together, until eventually, I wasn't part of their lives anymore. Not really, just someone they checked in on occasionally. Someone they remembered when it was convenient, or when it made them look good. I thought back to how things used to be before Claire came into our lives. Daniel used to call me every week, sometimes just to talk about nothing. Work frustrations, random thoughts, silly things that didn't matter but somehow meant everything. We had routines, Sunday dinners, long conversations, shared traditions. And then Claire appeared, and at first I was happy. She was charming, attentive, the kind of person who made you feel like everything was under control. I thought she was good for him. Maybe she was. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. The dinners became less frequent. The calls became shorter. And whenever I asked about it, Daniel always had an explanation. Claire's been planning something. We're really busy this week. Maybe next time, Mom. There was always a reason. Always something that made it seem normal, reasonable.
Until now.
Because now I could see the pattern behind the excuses. Claire never said anything directly against me. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she worked in subtleties, in suggestions, in quiet observations that planted doubt without ever sounding like criticism. Your mom seems a bit tired lately. I don't want to overwhelm her. She deserves her rest. It sounded caring, thoughtful, but the result was always the same. Less time with me, less involvement, less everything. And Daniel believed her. Of course he did. He trusted her, loved her. Why wouldn't he? That was the most painful part of all. Not just that I was being pushed out, but that he didn't see it happening. Or worse, that he had started to see me the same way she did, as someone fragile, outdated, easy to set aside. I stood up and walked to the window again, gripping the edge of the counter. For years, I had convinced myself that this was just what happened when children grew up. That distance was natural. That change was inevitable. But this wasn't natural. This was intentional. And once I admitted that, something inside me shifted. The sadness was still there, the hurt, but underneath it something else began to grow. Something sharper,
Clearer.
I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't doubting myself. For the first time in a long time, I was certain. Claire had been slowly removing me from my own family, and she had almost succeeded. Almost. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a slow breath, because now that I could see it, I couldn't unsee it. And that meant one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. 3 days passed after my birthday. 3 long, quiet days where the house felt too still, too clean, too empty. I didn't call Daniel again. I didn't text. I didn't reach out to anyone. For the first time in years, I stopped chasing people who clearly had no intention of turning back toward me. Instead, I waited, not for them, for clarity. And strangely enough, it came to me. On a Tuesday morning just past 10, the doorbell rang. The sound startled me more than it should have. I wasn't expecting anyone. I rarely had visitors anymore, not without notice, not without planning. Spontaneity had quietly disappeared from my life, replaced by careful scheduling and even more careful disappointment. I walked to the door slowly and looked through the peephole. A man stood on my porch. Mid-40s, maybe. Dark hair, slightly disheveled, like he had run his hands through it too many times. He was well dressed, but not in a polished way. More like someone who had tried to look presentable but hadn't slept much. There were lines around his eyes, deep ones, and something tense in the way he held himself. He looked unsure, like he didn't belong there. For a moment, I considered not answering. After everything that had happened, I didn't feel particularly open to surprises. But something about him, something in the way he shifted his weight, like he was debating whether to leave, made me pause. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. He hesitated before speaking. "Elizabeth." My hand tightened slightly on the handle. "Yes. My name is Michael. I need to talk to you. It's about Claire." The name hit differently now.
Sharper.
Colder. I opened the door, but kept the chain latched. "What about her?" Up close, he looked worse.
Pale.
Tired. Nervous in a way that didn't feel fake. "This is going to sound strange," he said carefully, like he had rehearsed the sentence 100 times. "But I think my son might be living in your son's house." The words didn't make sense at first. They just hung there, suspended in the air between us. "What are you talking about?" I asked slowly. He swallowed. "Your grandson, Noah." The name landed like a physical jar. My chest tightened instantly. "Noah is my grandson," I said firmly. "I've known him since the day he was born." Michael nodded quickly. "I understand how this sounds." "I do. But please, just listen to me for a minute."
He's 7, right?
Brown hair, slight gap between his front teeth, small scar near his eyebrow. My stomach dropped.
The scar. Daniel had told me about it.
A fall at the playground when Noah was younger. It wasn't something obvious. Not something a stranger would easily notice. "How do you know that?" I asked quietly. Michael exhaled, like he had been holding his breath for too long. "Because I've been watching him." That should have made me slam the door. It should have terrified me. But it didn't. Because something in his voice wasn't threatening. It was desperate. "Explain," I said. I removed the chain and opened the door wider. He stepped inside cautiously, like he was afraid I might change my mind at any second. I led him into the living room, gesturing for him to sit. He perched on the edge of the couch, tense, his hands clasped tightly together. I don't know where to start, he admitted. Start with why you're here, I replied. He nodded. Claire and I, we were together. Before she met your son. I felt my body go still. How long? Almost 2 years. The room seemed to shrink around us. We lived together, he continued. We were serious, talking about marriage, a future, everything. And then,
I asked. His jaw tightened.
She got pregnant. My breath caught. I was happy, he said, his voice softening for a moment. I really was. I thought that was it, that we were building a life together. But she started pulling away, saying she needed time, that she wasn't ready for everything to change so fast. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Then one day, he continued, I came home and she was gone. Gone. Completely.
Clothes.
Documents. Everything. It was like she had never lived there. A chill ran through me. Did you look for her? For months, he said immediately. Police report. Private investigator. Social media. Nothing. She disappeared completely. And now? I asked. He leaned forward slightly. 3 months ago, I saw her. My heart skipped. Where? By accident. I was in another city for work. I saw her walking down the street with a boy. I didn't need him to say it. I followed them, he said. Not close enough to scare them, just enough to see. And the more I watched him, the more I knew. Knew what? His eyes met mine. That he was mine. The words hung heavy between us. I shook my head instinctively. That's not possible. That's what I told myself, he said quickly. But then I started looking into it.
Dates.
Timelines. Everything lined up. She was already pregnant when she left me. The room felt colder. Your son met her soon after that, didn't he? I thought back. The speed of their relationship. How quickly everything had moved.
Too quickly.
They got married fast, I admitted. Michael nodded grimly.
Exactly.
Fast enough that no one would question anything. Fast enough to make it believable. I stood up, pacing slowly across the room. Noah was born early, I said automatically. Daniel told me that. Michael's voice was quiet. Or maybe he wasn't. I stopped walking. Because suddenly, everything that had seemed normal before didn't feel normal anymore. The timing, the urgency, the way Claire had always controlled the narrative. This is a serious accusation, I said carefully. You can't just. I have proof. I turned toward him slowly. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. Simple, unremarkable,
heavy.
I managed to get a DNA sample, he said. From a barber shop she takes him to. I had it tested. My heart started beating faster. I got the results yesterday. He held the envelope out to me. I didn't take it. Not yet. Why come to me? I asked instead. Why not go to Daniel? Michael hesitated. Because of her.
Claire.
What about her? I've seen what she's doing, he said. Not just to me.
To you.
My chest tightened. What do you mean? I looked through her social media. Family photos. Events. Holidays. You're barely there. Sometimes not at all. The words hit harder than I expected. I've lived that pattern before, he continued. Near the end of our relationship, she started isolating me. Slowly. Quietly. Making me feel like everyone else was the problem. Like I was better off without them. I felt a chill spread through me, because I had just come to that same realization myself. She's doing the same thing to your son, he said. And to you. The room fell silent. I looked at the envelope again. At the thin line where it was sealed. Inside it was something that could change everything. My family. My reality. My past. Elizabeth, he said gently, I'm not here to take anything away from you. I can't ignore this anymore. Not if that boy is my son. I closed my eyes for a moment, and in that darkness, I saw Noah's face, his smile, his laugh, the way he used to run toward me before someone changed that. Then I opened my eyes and took the envelope. My hands were steady, but inside, everything was shifting. I held the envelope longer than I expected to. It wasn't heavy, not really, but it felt like it carried something far greater than paper, something final, something that couldn't be undone once revealed. Michael didn't rush me. He just sat there, watching quietly, like a man who had already crossed the line I was still standing in front of. Whenever you're ready, he said. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I truly was. My fingers slid under the flap, and for a brief moment, I hesitated again. Because as long as the envelope stayed closed, there was still uncertainty. Still a chance, however small, that everything inside it was wrong. But I had already come too far for that kind of comfort. I opened it. Inside were several sheets of paper, neatly arranged, clinical and precise in a way that made them feel even colder. I pulled the first page out and began to read. The words were technical, detached, filled with percentages and terminology that stripped emotion away from something deeply human. And then I saw it. 99.8% probability of paternity. I blinked. Read it again. Slower this time. The number didn't change. Noah wasn't Daniel's son. The thought didn't come as a loud realization. It slipped in quietly, like something that had already been waiting for me, something my mind had begun to accept even before I had proof. But knowing and seeing it written in black and white were two different things. I lowered the paper slightly, my vision blurring for a moment. That's not possible, I whispered, though the evidence was right there in my hands. Michael didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was calm, almost gentle. I wish it wasn't. I set the papers down on the table, but my hands didn't move away from them, as if letting go completely would make it more real. Noah, I said softly. He's just a child. I know. And Daniel, my voice faltered. He has no idea. Michael shook his head.
No.
He doesn't. The room felt suffocating suddenly, like the walls had moved closer without warning. I stood up and walked toward the window, needing space, needing air, needing something that wasn't this. Outside, everything looked normal. Cars passed. People walked. Life continued as if nothing had changed. But inside that room, everything had. I thought back to the day Noah was born. Daniel had called me, his voice full of excitement and fear all at once. He said the baby came early, but everything was fine. I remember how relieved I felt, how grateful. I never questioned it. Why would I?
But now
I could see it differently. The timing, the urgency, the way everything had moved so fast. Claire had needed things to move fast, because she had something to hide. She planned it, I said quietly, more to myself than to Michael. Yes, he replied. I turned back to him. You're sure about all of this? The timeline, everything? I checked it more times than I can count, he said. She was already pregnant when she left me. There's no other explanation that fits. I pressed my hand against my forehead, trying to steady my thoughts. This changes everything. I know. No, I said, shaking my head. You don't understand. This isn't just about biology. This is my family. My son has built his life around this. That child, Noah, he's grown up believing Daniel is his father. And Daniel believes it too, Michael added quietly. The truth of that settled heavily between us. And Claire, I continued, my voice tightening slightly. She's been controlling everything. The distance, the isolation, the way I've been pushed out. Michael nodded. That's not new for her. I looked at him sharply. What do you mean? He leaned back slightly, exhaling slowly. She's done this before. A cold feeling crept into my chest. Explain. I hired someone, he said. After I saw her again, I needed to know who she really was. And what I found, it wasn't good. He reached into his bag and pulled out another set of documents. This isn't even her real name, he said. I stared at him. What? Claire isn't Claire. Her real name is Catherine Hayes. The words hit like a shock. That's not possible. It is, he said firmly. She changed it years ago, reinvented herself, and she's been doing it over and over again. I picked up the documents with slower, more cautious movements this time. There were records, photos, names. 2 previous marriages, Michael continued. Both ended quickly, both with her walking away with money. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking deeper with each one. She finds someone stable, he said, someone trusting, builds a life with them quickly, then isolates them, cuts them off from anyone who might question her. My hands tightened on the papers, like she did with Daniel. Yes. And with me, I added quietly. Michael nodded. You were a risk. I looked up at him. A risk? You knew the timeline, he said. You were there from the beginning. If anyone could have noticed something was off, it would have been you. The realization settled in slowly. That's why. That's why she had pushed me away. Not because I was inconvenient. Not because I was forgetful. Because I was dangerous to her. She needed me gone, I said. Not just gone, Michael corrected. Irrelevant. The word stung more than I expected. Irrelevant. Like I didn't matter. Like I didn't exist. I walked back to the table and sat down again, staring at the papers spread out before me. Everything fit. Too well. The missed invitations. The wrong information. The subtle distance that had grown into complete separation. It hadn't been random. It had been strategy. She's been building a life on lies, I said slowly. Yes. And now we're standing in the middle of it. Michael leaned forward slightly. We don't have much time. I looked at him. What do you mean? They'll be back soon, right? From their trip? I nodded. In a few days. Then we need to decide what to do before that, he said. Because once she realizes you know something, she's going to react. I didn't doubt that for a second. Claire wasn't careless. She was calculated. And if she sensed a threat, she wouldn't ignore it. She could try to leave, I said. She's done it before. My chest tightened. With Noah. With both children, he corrected. The thought made my stomach turn. Emma. I hadn't even considered. What about Emma? I asked. Michael hesitated. As far as I can tell, she is Daniel's. A small, fragile relief passed through me, but it didn't last long. That doesn't change anything, I said. Not really. No, he agreed. It doesn't, because this wasn't just about biology. It was about truth, about manipulation, about a woman who had built an entire life on deception and was willing to destroy anyone who threatened it. I looked down at the DNA results again, then at the other documents, then back at Michael. What do you want from me? I asked. He met my gaze directly. I want you to help me stop her. The words settled heavily in the room. And protect the kids, he added. Both of them. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Everything I had believed in, everything I had trusted, all of it shaken. But beneath the shock, beneath the pain, something else was forming. Something stronger, clearer. I had spent years being pushed aside, ignored, erased. But not anymore. I looked at Michael again, and for the first time since he arrived, I felt certain about something. She picked the wrong family, I said quietly. A faint, Grim smile crossed his face. Yes, he replied. I think she did. I folded the papers carefully and placed them back into the envelope. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. And this time, I wasn't going to stand on the sidelines of my own life. I waited 3 days before calling Daniel. Not because I needed time to think. I had already done that. Not because I was unsure. I wasn't. I waited because I understood something now that I hadn't understood before. Timing mattered. Claire had built her entire life on control, on choosing the right moment, the right words, the right circumstances. If I was going to confront her, I couldn't do it impulsively. I couldn't let emotion guide me the way it had in the past. I had to be deliberate, just like her. So when I finally picked up the phone, my voice was calm.
Steady. Practiced.
Hi, sweetheart, I said when Daniel answered. Mom? He sounded surprised. Not unhappy, but not exactly relieved either. Hey, I was actually going to call you. Of course you were, I thought. Eventually. I was wondering if you and the family could come over for dinner this weekend, I said. I'd really like to see everyone. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. Yeah, that should be fine, he said. I just need to check with Claire. Of course you do. I kept my tone light. Saturday evening would be perfect. Let me talk to her and I'll call you back, okay? Of course. We hung up, and I stood there for a moment, holding the phone, staring at nothing. Even now, even after everything, he still needed her permission. The realization didn't hurt the way it would have a week ago. Now, it only confirmed what I already knew. He called back 2 hours later. Saturday at 6 works, he said. Claire says that's fine. Claire says. I smiled faintly. Perfect. I'll cook. After we hung up, I set the phone down slowly and looked around my kitchen. The same kitchen where I had stood on my birthday. The same table where no one had come. This time they would. And everything would change. Saturday arrived with gray skies and a steady drizzle that tapped softly against the windows. The kind of weather that made everything feel quieter, more contained, like the world itself was holding its breath. I spent the entire day preparing, not because I needed to impress them, but because I needed everything to feel normal. I cooked Daniel's favorite meal, roast with garlic potatoes, green beans, fresh bread. I even made dessert from scratch. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because routine gave me control. And tonight I needed control. By the time 6 o'clock approached, the house was ready. The table was set. Again. But this time, I wasn't waiting with hope. I was waiting with purpose. The doorbell rang exactly at 6. Of course it did. I opened the door, and there they were. Daniel looked tired. More than usual. There were lines on his face I didn't remember seeing before. Stress, I thought. Or maybe something deeper. Claire stood beside him, composed as always. Perfect posture. Perfect expression. Perfect control. And the children. Noah ran in first, full of energy, like nothing in the world had ever touched him. Grandma, he shouted, wrapping his arms around me. For a moment, my heart tightened painfully, because none of this was his fault. Hi, sweetheart, I said softly, hugging him back. Emma followed more quietly, holding onto a small toy. She smiled at me, a little shy, a little uncertain. I knelt and kissed her forehead. Hi, my love. Daniel stepped forward and hugged me. Smells amazing, Mom. Thank you. Claire smiled. It looks lovely, Elizabeth. Her voice was smooth. Too smooth. Thank you, Claire, I replied. We moved into the dining room, and for a while everything felt almost normal. The children talked about their trip. Noah described the ocean with wide, excited gestures. Emma chimed in occasionally, her small voice soft but happy. Daniel listened, smiling faintly. And Claire, Claire controlled the flow. Subtle interruptions, redirected conversations, gentle corrections. I saw it now. Every move, every word, every shift. I hadn't noticed it before. Now I couldn't stop noticing. When Noah started to mention missing me during the trip, Claire cut in smoothly. You had so much fun, didn't you? She said, smiling at him. He nodded quickly, and the moment passed.
Just like that. Erased.
After dinner, I suggested the children go into the living room to play. Claire hesitated. They should probably get ready to go soon, she said lightly. It's getting late. Her instinct.
To leave.
To avoid. To control the situation. This won't take long, I said calmly. Something in my tone must have registered, because she didn't argue further. The children left the room, their laughter drifting faintly from the living room. And then it was just the three of us. The air changed immediately. Daniel leaned back slightly, glancing between me and Claire. So, what did you want to talk about? He asked. I folded my hands on the table, steadying myself.
Family, I said.
Claire's smile tightened slightly. That sounds serious. It is. Daniel frowned. Mom, what's going on? I reached for the envelope beside me. The same one. The one that had changed everything. I've learned some things recently, I said carefully. About our family. About the past. Claire didn't move, but I saw it. That flicker. That brief, almost invisible shift.
Fear.
She knew. Not everything, but enough. What kind of things? Daniel asked. I placed the envelope on the table between us. The kind that deserve honesty. The room fell silent. Daniel looked at the envelope, then at me, then at Claire. What is that? He asked. I met his eyes. The truth. Claire stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous, she said. Elizabeth, if this is about your birthday. Sit down, I said quietly. She froze. For a moment I thought she might argue, but then, slowly, she sat. And that told me everything. Because Claire never backed down, unless she had to. I opened the envelope, pulled out the papers, and placed them on the table. Daniel, I said gently, you need to read this. His hands hesitated before reaching forward. What is it? A DNA test. The words landed like a shockwave. A what? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't look at Claire. I looked only at him. It shows that you are not Noah's biological father. Silence. Absolute. Heavy. Crushing. Daniel stared at the paper, then at me, then back at the paper. That's not possible, he said. But his voice didn't sound certain. Claire stood again. This is insane, she snapped. I don't know what kind of game you're playing. Catherine. The name cut through the room like a blade.
She stopped.
Completely still. Daniel blinked. What did you just say? I didn't take my eyes off her. Your real name, I said calmly. She turned slowly, and for the first time since I had known her, she looked exposed. Not in control. Not composed. Just caught. Daniel looked between us, confusion turning into something darker. Claire, he said, but she didn't answer. Because she couldn't. And, in that silence, everything began to fall apart. The silence after I said her real name didn't just fill the room. It consumed it. Claire, Catherine, stood frozen beside the table, her entire body rigid, like she had been turned to stone mid-motion. Daniel looked at her, then at me, then back at her again, like he was trying to force reality to rearrange itself into something that made sense. Catherine, he repeated slowly, the word unfamiliar on his tongue. She didn't answer. That was the first crack. Because Claire always answered. She always had something to say, something ready, something perfectly shaped to control the situation. Silence wasn't her language. And yet now she had nothing. Say something, Daniel demanded, his voice tightening. She finally moved, but it wasn't the confident, fluid movement I was used to. It was slower, uncertain. She turned toward him, her expression shifting rapidly, searching for something to hold on to. "This is absurd," she said, but the strength wasn't there. "Elizabeth has clearly misunderstood something." "Then explain it," I said calmly. She glanced at me, and for a brief moment, the mask slipped. There was again that flicker of fear. Not anger, not annoyance. Fear. Daniel picked up the papers again, his hands trembling now. I watched his eyes move across the page, watched the moment the numbers registered, watched the disbelief twist into something sharper. This says, I'm not his father," he whispered. No one corrected him. No one needed to. He looked up slowly. "Claire," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "Tell me this isn't true." For a second, a single second, I thought she might try to lie again. That she would reach for another excuse, another carefully constructed story. But she didn't. Instead, she said nothing. And that silence was louder than any confession. Daniel stood up, so abruptly his chair nearly fell backward. "How long?" he asked. She swallowed. "Daniel." "How long?" he repeated, louder this time. Her eyes flicked toward the living room, where the children's laughter still echoed faintly, blissfully unaware of the storm unfolding just a few feet away. "It doesn't matter," she said quietly. "The wrong answer." Daniel let out a short, broken laugh. "Doesn't matter?" he repeated. "I've raised him for 7 years. 7 years. And you're telling me that doesn't matter?" "I didn't say that," she snapped, a hint of her old control returning. "You are his father. In every way that counts." "Except the truth," he shot back. The words hit hard. Even she flinched. I stayed silent, letting it unfold. This wasn't my moment anymore. This was his. "What else?" he asked suddenly. She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "What else have you lied about?" he said, his voice low now, dangerous in its calm. "The name, the past, what else?" She shook her head quickly. "You're overreacting." "Am I?" he interrupted. "Because right now, it feels like my entire life is built on something I didn't even know existed." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because she had no answer that would fix this. No version of the truth that wouldn't destroy everything. I reached for the second set of documents and slid them across the table. "There's more," I said quietly. Daniel looked at me, hesitation flickering in his eyes. "Mom, you need to see it," I said. He took the paper slowly, and as he read, I watched him fall apart. Not dramatically, not loudly, but piece by piece. The previous marriages, the name change, the pattern, each detail stripped away another layer of what he thought his life was. "She's done this before," he said finally, his voice hollow. I nodded. "Yes." He looked at her again. "You planned all of it," he said. "Meeting me, the timing, everything." "That's not fair," she said quickly. "I didn't plan you. I didn't plan us." "But you planned what came after," he pressed. "You needed someone. Someone stable. Someone who wouldn't question anything." "That's not true," she insisted, but the conviction wasn't there anymore. "Then why lie?" he asked. She didn't answer. Because there was no answer that didn't confirm it. From the living room, Noah's voice called out, "Dad, can we have dessert?" The word hit like a knife. "Dad." Daniel closed his eyes briefly, pain flashing across his face. "What do I even say to him?" he whispered. I felt my chest tighten. "Nothing changes for him tonight," I said gently. "He's still your son. That doesn't disappear because of a test." Michael's words echoed in my mind, and for the first time I fully understood them. "Claire, Catherine, let out a shaky breath. "You're not taking him away from me," she said suddenly, her voice sharp again, defensive. "No one is taking him anywhere," I replied calmly. "But the truth isn't yours to hide anymore." Her eyes snapped to mine. "You think this makes you important again?" she said, bitterness creeping in. "You think exposing this somehow puts you back in control?" I held her gaze. "This was never about control," I said. "It was about being erased. And I'm not invisible anymore." That hit her, harder than anything else. Daniel looked between us, exhaustion settling over him. "The trip," he said suddenly. "My mom's birthday. That wasn't a coincidence, was it?" She hesitated. And again, that hesitation told him everything. "You planned that too," he said quietly. "You made sure she would be alone." "I was protecting our family," she said.
From what? He demanded.
"From her interfering," she snapped. "From questions, from complications. From the truth," I said. Silence again.
Heavy.
Final. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, his movements restless, agitated. "I don't even know who you are," he said. That was the moment. The real one. Not the anger. Not the shock.
But that.
The loss of recognition. She looked at him, and for the first time, something like desperation appeared in her eyes. "I love you," she said.
He stopped.
Slowly turned toward her, and shook his head. "I don't think you know what that means," he replied. The words landed softly, but they ended everything. From the living room, Emma's small voice drifted in. "Mom?" Claire closed her eyes briefly, and just like that, the room shifted again. Because this wasn't just about lies. It was about children, about consequences, about what came next. Daniel looked at me, his expression lost. "What do we do now?" I took a slow breath. "Now we stop pretending." He nodded slowly, and for the first time since this began, he wasn't looking at Claire for answers.
He was looking at me.
And that told me something important. Something she had tried to take away for years. Hadn't been destroyed after all. 6 months changed everything. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic, clean break where life neatly rearranges itself into something better. It was slower than that.
Messier.
There were days when it felt like nothing was improving at all, just shifting, like pieces of a broken mirror being moved around without ever forming a clear reflection. But over time, something new began to take shape. And this time, it was real. Claire, Catherine, was gone. Not in the way people imagine.
No final confrontatiam, no dramatique exit.
She left the same way she had entered so many lives before. Quietly, efficiently, without looking back. There were lawyers involved, of course. Long conversations, documents, agreements. In the end, she chose distance over a fight she knew she couldn't win. She disappeared again. But this time, she didn't take everything with her. She left the children behind. The first few weeks were the hardest. Noah didn't understand what was happening. Not fully. How could he? At 7 years old, the world is still supposed to be stable, predictable. Parents don't just vanish from that world, not without leaving something behind. Confusion.
Fear.
Questions that don't have simple answers. He asked about her constantly at first. "Where's Mom? When is she coming back? Did I do something wrong?" Those questions, they stay with you. They don't fade quickly. Emma reacted differently. Quieter. She became clingy, holding on to Daniel or me like we might disappear too if she let go. She stopped sleeping through the night for a while. Small footsteps would echo down the hallway, and she'd appear in the doorway, wide-eyed, just needing to see that someone was still there. That we hadn't left too. We didn't lie to them. But we didn't tell them everything either. Not yet. We told them what they could understand. That their mother needed to go away. That it wasn't their fault. That they were loved. That they were safe. And slowly, very slowly, that was enough. Daniel changed the most. At first, he moved through everything like a man walking through fog, present but not fully there. The weight of betrayal isn't something you shake off quickly, especially when it's built into years of your life, into your home, into your children. He questioned everything, not just her, himself. How did I not see it? He asked me once, late at night when the house was quiet and the children were asleep. You trusted someone you loved, I told him. That's not blindness. That's being human. He didn't answer right away, but I saw something shift in him after that. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of it. Michael became part of our lives in a way none of us could have predicted. At first, it was careful, measured. He kept his distance, not wanting to disrupt what little stability the children still had. But Noah, no one noticed him immediately. Children do that. They see things adults try to ignore. There was a familiarity between them that couldn't be explained away. The way they stood, the way they looked at things, small, almost invisible details that connected them. And eventually the truth came. Not all at once, but enough. Noah handled it better than I expected. Children don't see the world in the same rigid structures we do. To him, the idea of having two fathers wasn't something to reject, it was something to accept. Does that mean I get double birthday presents? He asked once. We laughed. And in that moment, something heavy lifted. Because he was okay. Not untouched, but okay. Emma accepted it even more easily. To her, it simply became part of reality. People came and went, but the ones who stayed, those were the ones who mattered. And we stayed. All of us. Daniel found his footing again, slowly but surely. He started making decisions on his own. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. He stopped asking what Claire would have wanted. He started asking what he wanted, what his children needed, what mattered. And somewhere along the way, he came back to me, not all at once, but steadily. Sunday dinners returned, not as an obligation, but as something we chose, something we wanted. Michael found his place too, not replacing anyone, not taking over, just being there, present, consistent, honest. It wasn't always easy. There were awkward moments, unspoken tensions, but there was also something stronger than all of that. Truth. And truth, even when it hurts, builds something that lies never can. One evening, as we sat around the table, Daniel, the children, Michael, and me, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not perfect peace. Not the kind that comes from everything being right, but the kind that comes from everything being real.
No pretending. No hidden agendas. No manipulation.
Just people, flawed and complicated, choosing to stay. After dinner, Noah ran into the kitchen and wrapped his arms around me. Grandma, he said, this is my favorite place. I smiled, pulling him close. Mine too, I replied. And I meant it. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full of voices, of memories, of something alive. I looked at the photograph on the table. All of us together. Not the family I once thought I had, but the one I have now. Stronger. More honest.
Real.
I used to think my 65th birthday was the day I lost everything. Now I understand. It was the day I stopped being invisible. The day the truth found its way to me. The day everything broke. So something better could finally begin. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this. Family isn't about perfection. It's not about appearances. It's not even about blood. It's about who stays, who chooses you, who fights for you when things fall apart. That's what remained. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.